I said, look, you do that. If you want to protect your business, it's your business, you protect it. But I'm not talking about actions right now. I'm only talking about understanding people's motives. And if you can't understand how somebody could be that angry, then you'll never understand what the issues are, and there'll never be any change, because all it's going to be is people just fighting with each other. Understanding is the first building block of being able to actually change stuff. And I don't think there's a lot of people that are even willing to take the time to think about it. Like, yes, looting, rioting, violence, all that stuff is terrible. Why is it happening though? There's a reason why it's happening, and if you can't understand the underlying issues and the anger, then nothing's ever going to change, and we're just going to go back to normal. The world is on fire, and Alex got new lips. What's up? It's the Jubal Show podcast. Yes, there's pandemonium in the world today with the coronavirus, and now all the rioting and looting and protesting over the death of George Floyd and a lot of other black people that have died at the hands of the police. We're going to talk about all that today, and some updates on what's happened with the officer. They've upgraded his murder charge, which I think is great and appropriate. We'll get into a lot of that stuff. It's going to be a more serious episode today because, let's face it, there's some serious stuff going on in the world, and how can you not talk about it? But let's start off with the not so serious stuff. What do you guys think of Alex's new lips? She got lip injections.
Did you notice?
Did you guys notice?
No.
I didn't.
Yeah, we've been prepping for the podcast for about 45 minutes yet, and nobody's said anything, and I think both of you are fucking assholes.
Nobody even noticed.
Nobody noticed at all.
Now that you mention it, yeah, they seem a little full
plumper.
today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little
Yep.
plumped up.
They're
I'm just
plump.
gonna say, like, girl, you look not one but too cute.
Yep. Got it done for the first time ever.
So is that what is that? Is that filler? What, okay.
Yeah, it's
All right.
what is it? Is it collagen or is it something else?
Hyaluronic acid.
Hyaluronic acid, you guys. It's hyaluronic acid that they.
So your body naturally produces it, and
Okay.
it only lasts for like 6 to 12 months.
Yeah,
And
well,
you have to
good
get
for
it
you
done
for
again.
admitting it. You know, the Kardashians have pumped like concrete, like pounds of concrete into their lips, and it takes them 5 years to admit that they've done anything to their lips. Like Kylie Jenner is the one with the huge lips.
Yeah.
And I keep telling Alex, do the full Kylie Jenner, like go
Like
all
as
the
a
way
joke.
with it.
As a joke.
Like,
Could you imagine? I have small ass lips. Could you imagine?
You're just
Not anymore.
Yeah, if she went Kylie Jenner with it, but Kylie Jenner, has these enormous lips. Like,
But they look good. I don't know. Like, it's weird how good they look considering how much
Yeah.
filler is in there.
but she didn't admit to doing it though
Yeah.
for the longest time, and it's like, what happened then? A bee stung you? How did your lips get that big overnight?
Yeah. I was talking to the girl who did my lips, and she said she gets 7 syringes. I got 1.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one. So
Well,
if you
remind me again. What was that fake Kylie challenge where they were like sucking on something to like
Yeah,
make their
basically,
lips big?
but before she like blew up because of her lips, you would like suck your lips to make them like basically swell,
Yeah.
yeah,
but it doesn't last, obviously.
and people were like getting
Right.
bruises.
Yeah,
and
and
things
it was
that
like
from-
fucking people's faces up.
Best part though, the best part about Alex getting her lips done
Oh my
is
God.
fucking so funny because they're plumper than what they've normally been, and now she kind of has like I don't even know what you'd call that. Anyway, she was like, we're in bed last night looking at her phone, doing whatever.
Like
and
I do all the time.
And I walked in and I was like, are you?
Right.
Are you taking selfies right now?
And I was like,
Like
No.
you're taking pictures of
it
yourself?
was like 11 o'clock. I'm like, no.
It's just that her lips now look like if she was taking a selfie. I literally thought she was in bed like taking pictures of herself, and she was just reading something. I'm like, oh, that's right, your lips are done.
We were fucking dying because he literally thought I was like,
Yeah.
but it's like, because girls have to do that a little bit to make their lips look fuller.
Yeah, but
And
now
so
they just puff out naturally because she got them done, and I was literally dumbfounded.
we
I'm
were like in tears
I was like, why?
last night.
Why are you taking pictures of yourself in bed at 11 o'clock at night? Was there something I should know about right now?
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 1 syringe. Do you think next time you're going to go for 2, or are you happy
No.
with 1?
I'm happy with 1, but what they do is layer, so I'll go back in a few months and get a half
Okay.
added, and then like every 6 months get like a half So that's what I'll do.
And then I'm gonna eventually do it, and I'm gonna go full
He needs a little on his upper lip.
I'm gonna do some on my. I want to get some of that filler under my eyes. I have these permanent bags, right?
You can get rid of them.
You can get it removed, you know.
Yeah, get them
you can get your
removed.
bags taken off. We were gonna talk.
Don't get filler. Don't puff them in.
On the podcast today, we were gonna talk about the protesting and everything else going on. But you know what? Let's just talk about our
Plastic
bodies
surgery.
and things that we want to change about them. No, you can get your bags removed under your eyes. I'm pretty sure you can.
Yeah, you can.
And I've talked to a couple different women that had things done, like filler and that stuff. And I'm always like, what can we do with these? Like,
You can get them removed.
Yeah.
yeah, that's what it bothers me because people think I'm tired all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I am, but not as tired as I look.
Manny, what plastic surgery would you like to get?
You know, I'm really sensitive about my Achilles tendons. I always feel like so I would get implants there. You
A
know,
little Achilles tendon lift?
Yeah.
I've always, and not to be rude, but I've always thought that your Achilles tendons were very
A little
saggy.
small.
Yeah, small, saggy, like, disgusting. Well, welcome to the Jubal Show podcast. Of course, everybody's here. Alex is here. She took last week off. My hot-ass wife, Alex Fresh, but she's here. Manny Martin and John Slaton on the show today. Like I said, we're going to be talking about everything that's going on in the world. And then also, of course, the hottest segment in entertainment today. I don't care how serious the podcast gets.
We have to have it.
You have to have John Slaton's hot celebrity gossip thingy that we don't have a name for yet. That'll be coming up soon. You have any teasers for us on what your gossip's going to be today, John? And there you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
there it is.
And there it is. You guys are going to stay tuned.
I'm going to be talking about somebody that some people may refer to her as baby or sweetie, but the world knows her as something else. So that's all that against.
All right.
Wait, so Baby and Sweetie is one of her nicknames?
Well, maybe somebody calls her that.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Maybe
like,
her SO.
Yeah, or a lover or a.
That's what an SO is.
Well, yeah, but she's also married, so I don't know if it's her.
Is it T.I.'s wife?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Okay, she's baby, right? Don't they call her
Yeah.
baby? Something like that? Yeah. Do you know who T.I. is?
Yeah.
Okay, good. He should know because he's our celebrity gossip.
Yeah, he has to know. He's met him before.
Yeah.
He's from Atlanta.
Okay, now I don't know where I'm going. Oh, we're going to talk about the protesting and the rioting and just sort of everything that's going on in society. I mean, this reminds me so much of the 90s right now, the early 90s. Because
So do you guys remember that?
I do. I
Yes.
think it's basically because I grew up in California. I really remember the whole Rodney King thing, thinking like, oh man, these guys got caught on video. They're going to go to jail. You know, justice is going to be served. And then it didn't happen.
Damn.
And I just remember everything burning.
I remember
Yeah.
I was a kid in LA at the time, and I remember vividly when that verdict was announced, and I just like, I remember I was young, but I remember being like, man, everybody's gonna burn shit down now. And I also remember being like, yes, we should fucking burn it down. And that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about on the podcast today was, you know, Alex and I have had a few conversations about rioting and looting and things like that. And it's hard for people to understand why people would want to destroy their communities and businesses and things like that when they're angry. And my only response has been that if you can't imagine being so angry and unheard and like you don't matter, that the only thing you can think to do is you just want to destroy things. You just want to burn things. You just want to be seen. You're like, there's no change happening from any sort of peaceful protest we've had. Maybe something will change if we start burning this fucking country down.
Why are they burning down people's businesses, though? And they're burning down the wrong buildings, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always misdirected when people loot and things like that. But then, you know, they're angry at capitalism and all this other stuff. And then there's people that, honestly, I think there are a lot of people out there who use it as an opportunity to they don't even really care about the cause that they're looting for.
Yeah.
They just want to be a part of something, and then they're also angry about something else, and then they want to incite people to start a riot, and then before you know it, everything's crazy. But there's a lot of people that I think do it for the wrong reasons, and I'm not saying that looting and rioting is what people should be doing, but it's understandable how you could do that if you're that angry and things are just not changing. I mean, think about your everyday life. Everybody's had a moment in their life where they're mad about something and you just want to fucking break something. You know, maybe not everybody has. Maybe I'm a psychopath. I don't know. But you get those moments where you're so mad about something where you're like, I don't care what it is. I just want to break something right now. And I think that's what goes on in these situations.
Yeah, I just don't understand why people are stealing from businesses. Like they're going in and stealing from Louis Vuitton and Target and all these other stores. But there's that many shitty people that are willing to go steal from other companies. Like that, I don't get it. Like I understand your point. I really don't understand why people go in stores and steal everything. There's that many shitty people who will steal other people's property. Like damaging like small businesses is already like ridiculous to me, but then stealing is weird. Like that doesn't make sense. That's not part of the cause.
The looting part of rioting has always been one that's kind of confusing to me, because I totally get throwing a brick through a window. I totally get why you want to.
Stations or the courthouse
starting fires and things like that. Like I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying I understand. And but I have never understood the looting part. And back in LA during the Rodney King days, I remember after that I would go over to friends' houses and they'd have a brand new TV. You knew exactly where that TV came from. You're like, oh, they got a brand new TV. Because I had friends that were involved in that kind of stuff.
I need new shoes. You know, it's like everything's been closed down. I've been wanting to buy some new shoes lately, and that's what popped into my mind. Like, I was looting. I'd probably maybe look at some new shoes.
I said Costco.
Costco's a great place to do.
But I'm like, why small businesses? I understand the Targets and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But why the small businesses? Why are people destroying small businesses?
You know, like just looking at TV, it really feels like it's a lot of people in their early 20s. They've probably seen endless non-convictions. And like Jubal said, they don't know where to direct that anger. And so they're like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and just, there's those anarchists where every time there's a peaceful protest, they just want to jump on board and destroy anything.
And they're young. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
You know, teenagers and young 20s, like they're still super young. They don't even know what's going on, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's literally idiots out there, because you look at it like this, right? We have coronavirus still going on, like every reason to have a mask on, so that you don't get caught robbing.
Yep.
And there's people running out of stores, and you can see their whole face. I'm like, what the fuck are you?
Like you should at least. Nobody would question your mask right now. Put the mask on if you're gonna steal something.
It's kind of an ideal time.
Yeah, it is. It's
Put the mask on. So do you want to go to Louis Vuitton? Go to the Brayburn?
Let's go. Let's go to the
Brayburn.
Let's go get some stuff.
You know what's funny is people looting. They're wearing masks, but the guys that are standing out in front of stores with their guns and stuff I'm going to protect the store.
The douchebags of America.
No.
Which I think that's so stupid, because these stores are insured. And why, if you're going to be going out with a gun, you're looking for trouble.
Yeah.
And why open the door to more violence that's going to happen? Nothing good is going to come of that.
I feel like those guys are just like on a power trip, like these white guys with guns, like cool.
They want to be heroes.
Yeah.
And they want to
like
be that mentality of like, well, you're going to come fuck with my stuff. I'm not going to let anybody fuck with my stuff. I have every right to shoot you. And it's like, now's not the time for that, man. You have insurance.
Yeah.
Let your insurance deal with it. Board up your windows. And I got into, it wasn't an argument, but a conversation on Twitter the other day, because I posted this on Twitter. I said, if you can't imagine being so angry, like I just said, unheard angry, that you would want to burn stuff down, then congratulations, you've had a very nice life. Because I don't believe there's anybody on the planet who hasn't been that angry before to understand that feeling that you want to break something. I mean, even if it's just in your everyday life, like minor things that you get mad about, you might get that feeling. So my point was, if you can't even understand that, then congratulations. Also, if you can understand it, that's how we can start to get some change. Because it's not about actions right now. It's about understanding what people are going through. And people responded to that, of course, and said, well, just so you know, I have every right to protect my business. And I responded, normally I'll argue with people, but I'm not being argumentative right now because that's kind of my whole point of how to fix things is to understand. But I said, look, you do that. If you want to protect your business, it's your business, you protect it. But I'm not talking about actions right now. I'm only talking about understanding people's motives. And if you can't understand how somebody could be that angry, then you'll never understand what the issues are, and there'll never be any change, because all it's going to be is people just fighting with each other. Understanding is the first building block of being able to actually change stuff. And I don't think there's a lot of people that are even willing to take the time to think about it. Like, yes, looting, rioting, violence, all that stuff is terrible. Why is it happening though? There's a reason why it's happening, and if you can't understand the underlying issues and the anger, then nothing's ever going to change, and we're just going to go back to normal. That's another thing that has been something that I've thought about too. Is, with the riots in '92 over Rodney King, no justice, no peace. There was rioting, it continued on, and then it just sort of went away. And I think that people who are out there protesting, the peaceful protests, great. The people that are getting involved in the rioting and everything else, probably not great. But you're making your point. Stop at a certain point, but keep the momentum going, and don't just get out there for a weekend and protest and care and then go back to normal when the next hot news story hits. That's one thing that's been bothering me too, is I think there are a lot of people out there who get involved in this type of stuff, but they don't continue it. They don't have a passion for a cause. Alex and I were talking about this the other night. And I said, if more people, and sorry I'm talking a bunch, I'm just kind of ranting because this has been on my mind.
You're good.
I said, if more people would just choose one thing to be passionate about and protest that and work on that throughout their life, you might actually see some change. But the problem is you have so many social justice warriors in there. Everybody wants to jump on whatever hot trend it is, and then they jump off as soon as there's another one. So anybody who is watching the podcast or listening to the podcast, and this is a very important issue for you, police brutality and racism in this country, stick with that and work on that through your life. Don't change everything. If you don't really give that much of a fuck about turtles and straws, then don't switch. Stay on the racism thing. Don't switch just because it's the next hot topic. And I think that's what a lot of people do. And that's what bothers me in these situations is you see people really wanting change, and then something else happens and they kind of move off, It bothers me a lot.
I agree with Alex 100%. When you look at a lot of these small mom and pops businesses, there's some of them that just can't bounce back from it. So it's hard to see them go through the looting. And, some of these small business owners are like black owners. So it's like, damn, you're getting a double whammy, So
yeah.
How fucked up is that? And I thought that this was kind of can you imagine if this happened to one of the looters? Like, you show up, and you're like, girl, I'm about to rob Nordstrom's, and you go get yourself 2 huge bags, and you get back to your car and the shit's all burned down.
Oh my God.
I in the LA riots in the 90s, they pretty much rioted in their neighborhoods, and then in all the neighborhoods, they were burning down their businesses, and in these predominantly black areas and stuff like that in LA, black Hispanic areas, and that was one of the messages, stop burning down your own stuff. And I'm not saying it's a right mentality, but at the time when I was living there and I was that age, I was like, fucking march that shit up to Beverly Hills where they don't get this stuff. Burn that, destroy that, make a point there, because those people don't give a shit about us. They don't care about what's going on down here. As a matter of fact, they're probably laughing that you're burning down your own liquor store right now. So, and I think that that's kind of something that's changed with what's going on right now is, and I can't speak for every area of the country, but I can speak specifically about LA where I grew up. But Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, they're doing that in those areas. The Grove in LA, which is a very upscale shopping center, they're attacking those places.
They brought in the National Guard for that, right?
Yeah,
for the Grove?
The guy who owns and designed the Grove, he didn't bring it in for the Grove. He's a developer in LA. And the Grove is a big, if you don't know what the Grove is in LA, it's a big outdoor shopping center, a lot of high-end stores and everything else. And he has a few different properties, but apparently there's this really small, little strip mall thing that he built in the Pacific Palisades that nobody's attacked, and I guess he thought that people were going to be like targeting his businesses, so he brought in the National Guard to surround this little strip mall so nobody could mess with it.
God.
I was talking to my agent the other day, was telling me about it because he lives in that area, but yeah, I mean, I think that now there's so many people involved in this, and it's gotten way bigger than it was then, that, you know, people are starting to really take notice. And,
You know, it's,
you know,
it really kind of opened up my eyes, because I thought, you know, unfortunately, I thought this was just going to be another incident of an innocent, you know, unarmed black man killed. And I was like, all right, you know, we'll do some marching, and then, you know, nothing's going to change. It's just too often in this country, I feel like we've seen tragic stuff happen and there hasn't been change. I feel like the breaking point for me was the Sandy Hook incident when they killed those kids, and there wasn't any type of reform. You know, people's, you know, guns were more important to them than the safety of kids. And you know, the gun topic is a whole different issue. And you know, but I feel like, damn, we didn't even have a discussion. We didn't even try to do stuff. And it's like, if that's not going to change, I guarantee, you know, this wasn't going to change anything. But it, you know, it started a lot of good discussions, and I mean, now people realize what Colin Kaepernick was going through, you know, with the whole protest thing. Yeah.
And that, we'll talk about the NFL in just a second too, because one of the coaches in the NFL came out and said something ridiculous about racism, and I want to touch on that. And I lost my whole train of thought.
I think that we should talk real quick about Black Lives Matter movement and what it actually means, because people don't understand it. They think all lives matter. Yeah, all lives matter. Yes, we understand that. But I read something where it made the most sense to me was, if you're out at dinner with your family and everybody gets their meal and one person doesn't, you're focused on that one person until they get their meal.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of like the same thing. Like, whites don't need help right now. Asians don't need help right now. It's the black people who needs help right now. Like, that's, so it's not like we're saying all lives don't matter, or just white lives or Asian lives, you know, or whatever, or black lives. Like, we're saying that black needs help, you know, and black lives.
That's a good way to put it.
Also matter. And you're living, the thing that has bothered me so much about the all lives matter people is that all they're doing is just getting defensive right away.
Right.
You know, you're not listening to what the message is. You're seeing a phrase, Black Lives Matter, and instantly what you're doing is you're thinking, well, you're feeling threatened. What about me? What about my life? My life matters as well. Yeah, nobody's saying yours doesn't. There's not a phrase that says black lives are more important. That's not what it's saying. It's saying Black Lives Matter, just like everybody else's. And if you're a white American, then you have to think about the history behind it. White lives have always mattered in this country. Always. There's no question about that. There doesn't need to be a White Lives Matter movement because it's already been moving, you know? The White Lives Matter movement started a long time ago and has been fine. It's doing great, you know? But when someone says all lives matter, it's just such a slap in the face, because nobody's threatening you. Nobody's saying that you're less important. Nobody's saying that black people are more important.
I almost feel like the people who say all lives matter are the racist ones.
I do.
You know, or they just they don't understand it.
Well, to my point earlier, it's about understanding. And in these moments, nobody takes the time to understand or try to understand what's going on. They have their own personal agenda, or they get triggered and they get angry because they feel like somebody's trying to take something away from them or make them feel less than they are. And you can't do that in these situations. You have to have some understanding, even if you don't like it. Even if you're like, fuck that, I think all lives matter. Well, fine, be like, fuck that, all lives matter, but then talk to someone who says Black Lives Matter and ask them questions to try to understand where they're coming from, because you might actually see the point and you might be able to change your point of view if you actually were able to listen and understand what it means. I draw the comparison yesterday because I was in on my comments on Instagram. I posted the black square for Blackout Tuesday, and somebody, of course, had to jump on and say all lives matter. And I'm like, fuck, not now. Like, why do you have to do that right now? And that was part of my conversation with them was, I want you to really, before you respond to me, because I guarantee you're going to respond to me angrily, before you respond to me, I want you to sit down and actually think about what the statement means. Don't just react Don't just get defensive. Don't just get like, well, Asians matter and whites matter and Hispanics matter and we all matter. Yes, nobody's arguing with you on that. I want you to really sit down and think about the phrase. And of course they didn't do that. Of course, as soon as I started going into it, they fucking commented right back with everybody matters. But what I equated it to, what Alex just said, was a really good way to kind of sum up what their meaning, what Black Lives Matter means when you say it. And the comparison that I used was, it was like Save the Whales, the Save the Whales movement, right? Whales were being hunted and killed and everything else. The Save the Whales movement, everybody was on board for that. Did anybody try to discredit the whales? No. Save the whales. Nobody said, hey, what about the dolphins? You know, dolphin lives are just as important as the whale lives. Like,
what about the tuna?
That. Yeah, what about all the fucking sea animals? Yeah, nobody said that the other ones didn't matter. Nobody got defensive for the dolphins. Nobody got defensive for the tuna. They just said, yeah, whales are getting killed right now. Whales need a little bit of special attention. Let's save the whales. Let's make sure the whales are good, and then we can all be good together. And
it's like people could understand it without even having to have it explained to them.
Yeah. You know, people should be able to just understand it, but they don't, because they're just triggered and angry.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I feel like social media has been so telling over the last, 10, 15 years in its existence, is that everybody has an opinion and everybody wants to be right. Nobody ever wants to admit that they're wrong. And, as a member of the Black community, it's like, yeah, man, we've been a good friend and we just need help right now. It's like, we just want justice when we're done wrong, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And if that, ever turns and the next movement is about, domestic violence and women, women being abused, I'm not going to be like, well, men need help too. We get beat up by, gladiator women sometimes.
Right.
You have to realize the plight of another person if we're going to make this place better.
Yeah.
You just have to take a step back, realize that, hey, I'm good in this moment. I'll never understand the focus of all lives and trying to detract from, hey, look how many Black people have died over here.
Yeah.
What don't you understand? That we just need a little bit of help, from our fellow brothers, man. And it's like, white, Asian, I hope that we can return the favor someday and be like, hey, Asian people need help right now, or Mexican people need help. And I'm not going to be like, well, Black lives still matter, guys.
Well, come on, can we focus back on, what are you trying to say? Exactly. That's it. It all starts with understanding. And it all starts with, I think you made a very good point, not trying to be right. In any kind of situation, relationships, the world, trying to fix anything, if you're arguing to try to be right, you're never going to come to a common ground, ever. And there are times where you're right, when you need to speak up and say that you're right about something, but there are also times where you need to realize you might not be right, or you both could be wrong. There's two people arguing, both of them can be wrong, but if you're not actually listening to each other, you're never going to get to a place where you can fix anything at all.
Exactly.
And that's the problem is with racially charged things. There's so many white people who want to say, because they've never experienced racism, right? They've also maybe grown up in an area where there's not a lot of Black people, there's not a lot of minorities. They've never actually seen racism. Racism is something that they've read about, something that they learned a little bit about in school.
Heard about.
Yeah, heard about. Something that they've learned a tad bit about in school, because in school, they don't teach you a lot of the really, really bad racist things that have gone on in this country. It's kind of skewed because the education system was created for white people by white people in this country. So they don't tell you a lot of the things that have happened. Like, look up the Tulsa race riots. That'll blow your mind. But they don't teach you about that in school. They don't. And so it's like a fictional thing. You're like, I'm not racist. I don't know anybody who is racist. I've never seen anybody be racist. I've just heard stories about it. That happened a long time ago. Well, guess what? In the 80s in Oregon, it was still illegal for you to marry interracially. In the 80s. That's in our lifetime.
Right?
It absolutely exists. It's everywhere today.
It is. And I saw the most ridiculous thing today. Oh my God. So I went to go work out with my buddy, right? He's a Black dude. And I'm at his gym, and he has like a garage door where he can walk outside of his gym. And I pull up to his gym, and I walk in, I'm setting my stuff down, And I hear him outside talking to somebody, and he comes back in, and he's just shaking his head. He's so angry. And I'm like, what just happened? He was outside of his gym. Car pulls up. This old white lady gets out. And when I say old, I don't know. He said she was like 50s probably, so not like super old white lady. But this white lady gets out, walks up to him, gives him a hug, says, I'm sorry.
Ridiculous.
And then goes and gets back in her car. And
like,
I'm
hey, guess what? White people, black people don't want hugs.
Yeah. Random black people don't
Well, the
need...
coronavirus is
Yeah.
amongst us.
Literally.
Exactly. Yeah, the coronavirus.
Even without the coronavirus.
But-
white people don't just go hug random black
Don't
people.
just go up
like,
and hug a random black
they
dude.
don't want to be hugged by
No.
you.
And how condescending is that, too?
It is.
And it's like, I know you have your white guilt and you're driving around feeling really bad.
And she's gonna feel great about herself because
Yeah.
she just went and hugged a black guy and made his day better.
And I was talking to him about it, and he's like, man, the last 2 days have been hell for me. Because he's like, I went to the grocery store. Someone stopped me at the grocery store to tell me how sorry they were. That's not the right way to go. You don't, because also think about that. You're going out of it as a white person with your carrying around your white guilt, wanting to hug black people to let them know you're sorry. Just any random black.
To let them know that you're not racist, so you
let
can
them
go
know-
home and
yeah.
tell your husband that you hugged a black guy today.
So you can feel like one of the good ones.
I get the sentiment though, but
Yeah,
at the same time, no, I'm with you. It's just a bit much.
And it's also
Yeah.
another reminder of, hey, we're different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I was
is.
just wondering, is that a way to meet black women for me right now? Is that acceptable and appropriate? I could just start walking up, hugging
up.
random black women?
Maybe.
And saying, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. It might help, but I mean, like I could not believe it. And
Yeah.
there's a big part of the country and the protesters. And I want to ask you, Manny, as a black dude, I want to ask you in a second how you feel about all the white protesters protesting alongside. I think if the intentions are right, I think it's great. But I think there's a lot of white people who are there to be a part of the trend, and then also to be like, look at me, I'm a good one. I'm not racist. Look at me, I did this. And that's for the wrong reasons. If you actually care about the cause and you're not doing it to make yourself look better, that's the right reason. A buddy of mine who lives in LA posted a thing on Instagram the other day. He's a black guy and he was walking in a protest, and he said that while he appreciates and really likes the fact that there's a lot of white people marching beside him, part of him is kind of angry at the fact that it had to take so many white people joining in for it to really make an impact. That's the way at least he feels about it. And I wanted to ask your perception on that, Manny, because I don't think any of us can accurately comment on how that would feel.
You know.
By the way, Manny, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Sorry that you were born black. God.
Ridiculous.
It's crazy because it's like I actually went out and they were a super nice couple, but I was like, it was after a show we had. And they were just apologizing to me for, all this stuff. And I'm like, but you didn't do it. I get where it's coming from.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you don't have to apologize to me. But as far as the protests go, I think it's needed. I mean, I don't think anything just gets done with just one group. And as much as I hate to say it, I would love to just be like, you know what, black people, let's just do this. Let's make this happen. But I think it takes all of us standing up and being like, hey, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm your brother, I'm your sister, I'm going to march alongside of you until we get results.
Yeah.
And we're going to see this one through. So,
Yeah.
I get your buddies like a little bit of outrage with it, and people may feel differently than me. I'm only one opinion, but I really do appreciate every person who's out there doing the right thing, walking beside us, getting online, whatever you can do to help forward the cause, the movement, to just have, better policing, just for people to be treated better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I saw something by Tupac in an interview, which was so it's so relevant to everything that's kind of going on, because I know that there's white people out there who are like, well, look at the way they live and look at what they're doing. And Tupac said the same things that white people are afraid of, we're afraid of. Mm-hmm. He was like, we don't, you think we want to be in these projects with like the killers and the rapists? He was like, we're in these projects 80 deep, and we gotta walk by how many killers and everything else before we even get outside. And he's like, in the same neighborhoods that the police show up, with Kevlar, you know, shields, helmets on. You know, we got to live in this shit every day. And he's like, we just need help.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, we just want a better situation for our kids, just like everybody else does.
Yeah. And there's the argument on the white side. You hear people who don't want to really admit that there's a bigger problem in minority communities. And they go, well, what about the poor whites that are living in there? Yeah, there's poor whites that live in projects too. There's poor whites that deal with it too. There's poor whites that are roughed up by the cops. And the problem is the numbers are not the same, you know? And they're also, most white people, if you're driving somewhere and you see a cop, you're not thinking that you might just get pulled over for no reason.
Or might just get shot for no reason.
Yeah. And I think that is forgotten and ignored by a lot of white people who want to get, who are, I don't even want to say knowingly racist, but they just feel slighted by it because there's a problem in the country of the race stuff, and then there's class too. So there's a lot of people who are just struggling when it comes to the economy and making a living. And I think that's where you get some of those All Lives Matters people from, is they're also angry about where they're at in life, which is understandable. You know, I've been there, I've been broke, I've been all this stuff, and it's not fun, and you're angry, and you want to find a place to direct it. So it's like, hey, well, we're also struggling. Yeah, but the numbers are not the same. And the things you have to worry about are not the same, you know?
Yeah. I mean, speaking about racism, I want to talk about the Lea Michele thing.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
Lea Michele, she's on Glee, and I saw this earlier. It says, well, she tweeted, George Floyd did not deserve this. This was not an isolated incident, and this must end. Right? Hashtag Black Lives Matter. And then someone who worked with her on Glee, who was like a black lady, apparently said that she was like really nasty to her and like made her work life living hell. And said, this girl, Sammy Ware.
I don't even know who that is, but I didn't watch Glee. I wasn't a big Glee fan.
Yeah,
neither was
but Sammy's black, and she responded to it and said, LMAO, remember when you made my first television gig a living hell? Because I'll never forget. I believe you told everyone that if you had the opportunity, you would shit in my wig, amongst other traumatic microaggressions that made me question a career in Hollywood.
Wow.
Right? So what a piece of shit.
Yeah.
It makes me so mad that someone is treating someone else like that because of their skin color. It makes no sense, especially a stupid like white girl.
Yeah. And the Lea Michele thing, since that came out, there's been quite a few
Another
other
person
people who have said things like that.
Dabier? Do you know who Dabier is?
No,
Official Dabier?
No idea.
I don't know. She's also black though, and says, girl, you wouldn't let me sit at the table with the other cast members because I didn't belong there.
Wow.
Fuck you, Leah, is what she said.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Is she like? So is Lea Michele like? Is she cousins with like Ellen or some shit? Or is
but I'm like, it doesn't make sense. Like Leah's younger, and like our generation is more accepting, and I feel like there's less racism in our generation. I know it still exists, but I feel like it just boggles my mind when I see someone like that being racist. I'm like,
I don't
who in
understand
the
it.
fuck are
Yeah.
you?
I gotta get a picture of her. I can't think of.
Oh yeah,
John,
you
you're a
haven't met
celebrity.
her?
You're a celebrity gossip expert here, and you don't know who Lea Michele is.
I mean, for her to treat
I have a picture of her in my head. I just gotta make sure it's the right person I'm thinking.
like she is entitled to be, I don't know, just like she's superior. It's just so annoying.
Right. And you know, and of course, she's getting called out because she's hopping on the bandwagon, trying to act like she cares when, according to those people, she
And
doesn't probably
HelloFresh,
care.
she was sponsored by HelloFresh. They dropped her.
Wow.
You know, amongst probably other sponsors who might have dropped her by now. But
I was just reading. She was born in New York, and it's funny. You know, I know we were thinking about telling stories about racism, and you know, I haven't had too many crazy moments in my life, but I will say this. Recently, I was in New York, and I went to a friend's like family get together, and they had cousins from like down south, and it's just so crazy how they were trying to be funny because they knew I was a comedian, but yet they were trying like to tell jokes that were kind of like racist. and I just wasn't laughing. They're like, "Oh, that was funny, right, man?" And I was like, "No,
No.
No,
Jeez.
not funny at all. No.
And one of the kids was like, "Oh, I thought all black people ate Hot Pockets." I was like, "Where the fuck does this like?"
I thought all black people ate Hot
never heard
Pockets.
This is someone you just met and they want to lead in with with a racist joke
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
to impress you in some way.
It's weird.
Yeah, and that goes on all the time. And that's not even subtle racism, but in groups of white people, when there is like one black, like Manny right now, but there are comments made constantly as a reminder, you know, and right now it's necessary because we're talking about race. But there are times like when you're just hanging out where it's not necessary, you know, to make comments about color the whole time. And I will say this, there's also, because I've lived in a lot of different places. I've had a variety of different types of ethnicities as friends and things like that. And growing up, most of the people I hung out with, I didn't really hang out with a lot of white people because of the areas I was in and because of just my sensibilities. I don't know, I just didn't connect that well. But throughout my adult life, though, I've been in many situations where it's a group of white people and there's like a Mexican dude, a black dude, an Asian dude, like the one minority person there. And there's constantly like, yeah, well, yeah, you're the Asian guy. Like always, that's being thrown out there. Mm-hmm. But then also, whoever you are, if you're a black dude, sometimes you'll start to do it too, to yourself. Like, I don't know if Manny, I don't know if you ever do this or if you realize that you do this or if you know what I'm talking about though. It's like, hey, I'm gonna say, you guys want to, I'm the black guy in the group. Well, that's also, I wish that when people would hang out in a group, if it's, you know, there's any diversity, you don't have to keep pointing out the color of people. You don't have to keep pointing out like, hey, you're the black dude. Hey, I'm the black dude. Hey, I'm the Asian guy. Hey, you're the Asian guy. I wish people would just hang out and stop even making reference to it.
Yeah.
And if we could start doing that, just like those little tiny changes when you hang out with people, just be aware of it and stop doing it.
I love those videos.
It can go away and people can just be normal.
Those videos of like toddlers, like either two girls or two boys, like the white kid and the black kid, and they're like running to each other, hugging. Like I've seen several of those. Those are so adorable. Like, yeah, kids don't see color, you know? And
no, you don't. You learn racism, you know? And any baby, like there's not a white baby and a black baby going to be laying next to each other not talking because they don't feel like it's right. They don't care.
Yeah.
And it starts with people teaching people to be racist. And if we can start to teach people that there shouldn't be any prejudices based on color or where you're from or religion or anything else.
It's so interesting to think about like where, I mean, maybe the first people were black or the, you know, Asian, or it's weird to think about like how is there literally, like I'm super pale. And then like just a difference in skin tone, like how did that even evolve at the beginning of like when people were made however we were? It's so interesting to think about.
You know,
I mean, oh, go ahead, John.
Oh, I was just thinking, I got to show you guys, I'd love the picture of my son's class photo from kindergarten, where he went to kindergarten. Most of his classmates spoke a second language, and his whole class was like, you had Indian people, you had, you know, Asian people
Mexican,
from all over, Hispanic. I mean, you look at his class photo, I mean, there is so many different ethnicities in there. And, you know, and he had, you know, when we went to birthday parties and stuff.
So you pulled him out of that school, obviously.
I thought it was so amazing for him to get that start in life, in school, with just so many different ethnicities. And I just thought it was great. I thought that was, you know, because it wasn't like that for me where I went to school, you know, and so to just see that he had friends of all different ethnicities, and so it was, I just liked that.
You know, and I think that one thing that is lost is, you know, I pulled up the census the other day because I was trying to write a joke, and Manny and I were talking about this joke I was trying to write, and I pulled up the census and I looked at the numbers of white versus black people in America, and it's like 70% white, 13% black or something like that. And that sounds like a staggering number, but if you think about the middle of America and places like Minneapolis that are not diverse at all, it's mostly white people. And that's why I think there are a lot of people who don't want to be racist, don't even know that they're being racist at all. But racism to them, because they live in these communities without any diversity, anybody else, that everybody looks like them, everybody acts like them, everybody has the same sensibilities, that racism to them is a figment of their imagination. It's something that doesn't actually exist. So they will say things and do things and operate in a way that is racist without even realizing it, because they don't even think racism exists, and it exists. And people are finally seeing it now because of cell phones. That's one of the, you know what, cell phones, one of the best things about cell phones is that this stuff is finally being filmed and people can see it.
I know. I thought of that when smartphones came out. I'm like, holy shit, now we're going to be able to see so much stuff that's never been documented.
Because this has been going on forever in our country. Police brutality has been going on forever.
Yeah.
I have been pulled over on 3 separate occasions, and I know I'm a white guy and I'm not supposed to be able to identify with this, but I've been pulled over on 3 separate occasions that involved profiling and racism. And the first one was I was pulled over one time in high school. I was with a bunch of dudes, shaved heads, wearing Dickies and white t-shirts. We looked like cholos. We're driving through Lawndale, California, which is kind of a hood area. There was a drive-by shooting there a little while earlier. We didn't know that. They pull us over, take us out of the car, sit us on the curb for 3 hours, shake us down, tell us we're going to jail, everything else. We didn't match any description, anything. None of us were known gang members. We just looked maybe the part. And they profiled us and held us there for a while and just basically harassed us for 3 hours. Okay? Because a lot of people don't think, because my name's Jubal, and then also like I have dark hair and stuff like that, and then if I'm hanging out with a certain crowd, a lot of people don't necessarily identify me as a white dude right away, because otherwise I would have been out of there in a fucking second. So there was that one. There was another one when I just started driving, and this was in Hawaii. I was driving with a bunch of friends, and we were out past curfew, and we got pulled over, and we were all looking like gang members. All of us had like bandanas on. We're out there tagging and stuff like that. A Hawaiian dude, a black dude in the car with me, and me. They end up, messing with the black dude. They end up beating my friend over the head with a mag light, their flashlight. We get their badge numbers. We get back to my friend's house. They didn't fuck with me, the white guy, didn't get fucked with. We get back to their house. We got the badge numbers. We call the precinct, trying to report it, and get the run around. Never were able to report it properly because there's a code, and they don't want people reporting for that kind of stuff and police officers. And that's one of the biggest problems, is the code that exists among cops. And then the third time, that was one of the most disgusting times ever that I had to deal with. I was pulled over. I was in high school. We had left school. We ditched school for a little bit because we had to go to another high school so my buddy could get a shirt back from a friend of his, right? He, Mexican dude, we're both dressed like cholos. We drive up to the school. We're outside. Cop comes, pulls us over, takes us out of the car, asking us questions, asks for our ID. We both give him our IDs. He tells my friend to sit down, and then he takes me to the front of his car, and he's looking at my ID, and he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Well, we're here to get this shirt, whatever." I explained the story, and he's like, No, that's not what I mean. It says here on your license that you're Caucasian." And I said, "Yeah." And then he said, "Well, what the fuck are you doing hanging out with this spick?" Which, by the way, wrong racist term for a Mexican. I think that's something else. So get your racist terms right. But he said, "What are you doing hanging out with this Mexican dude, man? That's only going to be trouble for you. Don't hang." He gave me my license back, told me to get in the car, go back to school. Arrested my friend.
Wow.
Absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff has been going on forever, but it's getting filmed now, and that's what's finally bringing more awareness to it. But also, it's finally shocking to people that never knew this existed. And that's what I mean by people thinking that racism is kind of like a figment of their imagination, because they've never actually seen it. But now people are actually able to see it, and they're appropriately angry about it. And hopefully some things can change, especially with law enforcement and these cops. Like, there was 4 cops on this dude. One of them should have been able to speak up and say, "Hey, take your knee off his neck."
Yeah.
Take your knee off his neck.
They all didn't want him to, though.
They might not have wanted him to. And even if you didn't want him to, because there's such a code amongst police, you can't do that. You can't be like, because now you got to go back to the precinct, and everybody is on the force is going to think you're a rat, and you're going to get shit. And I don't think you should cave to that. I think you should be like, "Fuck it, I did the right thing. I saved a guy's life." but you can see where the pressure comes from. I posted this Chris Rock meme on my story the other day on Instagram from a Chris Rock joke that I think is like, it's a great take on everything. He said, you know, there's some jobs you just can't have bad apples. Like, being a cop is tough, but you can't have bad apples. Like, you can't have American Airlines having pilots who are like, yeah, you know, once in a while this guy flies into a mountain, you know.
And sometimes they land.
But sometimes they land.
You know?
Like, it's kind of, we got a few bad apples.
Yeah.
That's a job where you can't have bad apples. And I think the policing needs to start with the police themselves. They need to start learning to police each other.
Murder isn't policing.
No, it's not. And they need to learn to police each other. You know, if you're a cop, if you got into being a cop for the right reasons, because there's people that got into it for the wrong reasons. If you got into it for the right reasons, and you want to assert authority, you want to help keep people in line, you want to keep people safe, start at home. Start in your precincts. You know, start calling out the guys who you know rough people up. Start calling out the guys who you know profile. Don't be afraid to fucking say it. Because maybe you'll be actually a fucking hero and save somebody's life, but they won't do it right now. Yeah. And I think that's another message that isn't being heard loud enough, is the police need to learn to police themselves. You know?
Yeah. One story I'll say real quick was that my mother-in-law, 70-year-old lady, right? 70-year-old white lady, was driving, and, you know, the cops had something blocked off and they were directing people around. And my mother-in-law drove through, and the cop turned around and hit her rear view mirror with a nightstick and broke it off her car.
Wow.
And like yelled at her, and she was like, whoa. And she's like frail, right? So she was like, I need your badge number. And I guess the cop knew that he fucked up, so he called the station to let them know what happened. And so when my mother-in-law called, they were like, well, you know, you can go ahead and report it, but we're going to write you a ticket if you do. And
what the fuck?
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Ridiculous. So, they look out for each other.
They do. And it's just
they do.
Man, if you can't even call out somebody doing wrong and be like, hey, man, you really messed up, let's at least pay for this lady's, like, you know, mirror, then what are you even doing? You know,
Stupid.
we pay you to serve us, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's forgotten, is you're an officer to help protect us. That's the oath and the job that you took.
Yep.
And if you're not talking about the people that you know are racist, or they abuse their power, or they're assaulting people in the streets, and, you know, maybe they're even selling drugs on the side. If you're not talking about those people that you know are doing it, if you're a police officer, then you're not doing your job, and you're not adhering to the oath that you took, that you're supposed to protect the public. Because those people out there are those people out there are walking around, those cops that will do that stuff, they're walking around with guns, and it's okay for them to walk around with guns. It's okay for them to assert force on people. And if there are gangsters like that, you should tell on them, because then you're actually doing your part as a police officer and saying, this guy is bad for the community. He needs to be not doing this job.
Correct. Before we move on, did you guys see any of the videos yesterday of the protest in Portland?
Mm-mm.
So there was like a ton of people, they were laying on their stomachs, like Floyd was, with their hands behind their back. And there was this lady over like a megaphone, and she was just repeating things that he was saying when before he died. Like, I can't breathe, mama. Like,
it's powerful.
Yeah, it is. And like everybody was just like weeping on the ground, and there were like thousands of people. It was just like a sight. And I was like, damn.
I saw this protester had a sign of all, like, well, not all, but a lot of the last words of people who have died at the hands of the police in the last 10 years or so, the high profile ones, who wrongfully died. And there were so many different ones where their last word was, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. It was,
I saw Kobe wear a shirt years ago that was just posted by Vanessa that said, I can't breathe. And I'm like, damn.
Yeah. This stuff can be stopped. And it starts really, I think it really starts in the police precincts.
It does.
You know, I think that's really where it needs to start. And we need to not stop having the conversation. Again, a little bit of a serious podcast. I never got to the NFL thing. Basically, an NFL head coach said the NFL isn't racist. Yeah. We don't even need to have more discussion about that, right? We can talk about that on another podcast.
Yeah.
But do your part. Help out wherever you can. Try to practice some understanding. Be safe. And hopefully this stuff will start to change. And hopefully, just as a country and as a world, we can start to get back to normal soon. You know? With the coronavirus, Who knows what's next? The aliens. Alex, you think?
Yeah,
You said-
aliens. I think they're up next and like
Aliens,
coming.
super
aliens are coming
excited
down
about
soon.
it.
They saw that successtional SpaceX launch and like, all right, it's time.
So now aliens are going to touch down next week, and then we're not going to be able to go out all over again.
Yeah.
Well, of course, before we wrap up the podcast, a lot of people have sat through us talking about these issues that
That you
are
didn't
important,
want to hear about.
that
I'm
you didn't
kidding,
want to
I'm
hear about.
kidding.
Well, they probably didn't. Some people were probably like, hey, get past all the important stuff going on and get to the fucking most exciting segment that is out there today in entertainment.
He's got his finger on the pulse of Hollywood. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for John Slaton's Celebrity Gossip Roundup thingy. We still don't have a name for it.
All right, you asked for a teaser earlier.
Yeah, I did, and it was a shitty teaser, by
Yeah.
the way. So I'm really curious as to what your gossip is about
It
today.
really didn't give anything, but there's somebody, a couple stories popped up about somebody that's been in the news, and as I mentioned, maybe there's someone in her life or has been that refers to her as baby or sweetie or other pet names, but most of the world knows her as that bitch down in Florida.
Oh,
So,
Carol Baskin.
Yes,
Okay.
couple stories popping about
I know what
her.
you're gonna say.
Yeah.
I know what you're gonna say.
I don't. I'm excited. What about Carol Baskin?
Well, okay. First of all, one of two stories. So she had that lawsuit against Joe Exotic about the copyright infringement because his advertising looked similar to hers. Sued him for like $1 million.
Yep.
But he didn't have any money, right? He used all his money to try to get somebody to allegedly kill her. We don't know,
Yeah.
So she was able to come after his former property. Now he had signed that property over to Jeff Lowell and
that guy.
That freaking
Yeah.
50-year-old who wears affliction.
Affliction.
I don't know.
Who
What's
somehow
the
got a
whole-
wife that lets him bang any chick that he wants. It's so weird.
Yeah, isn't his head hot? I mean, he wears like a bandana and a hat.
Yeah,
it's,
he's just
it's
all-
overkill.
It's
I don't-
cringy. It's cringy.
Ugh.
What's his last name?
Low.
Jeff Lowe wears way too much shit on his head.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
After we get this whole police violence thing wrapped up, can we make that the next cause? Make Jeff Lowe stop wearing shit on his head.
Anything that he's wearing. He's
What
wearing
is-
affliction and like the blingy on his jeans.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
What does his head look like? I don't think. Has there been
know.
any pictures of his?
It's probably like
Head?
not round or
No,
something.
his head's probably like sloped or something awkwardly, and that's why he has
Yeah.
to wear a bunch of stuff on top.
Belts
A
it out.
bandana, a
Layer-
hat.
You got to layer that head.
He has an Ed Hardy tattoo on. He's still sporting Ed Hardy. He actually got an Ed Hardy tattoo on his head. That's why he doesn't want to show it off.
So yeah, the property wasn't the transfer wasn't legal. So she actually got control of the 18 acres in
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oklahoma.
She got his freaking
Carol
zoo.
Baskin
Yeah.
got Joe
Yeah.
Exotic
Yes.
Zoo?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh
She's
my
like
God.
fuck Carol. I'm so mad that she got that because like even though Joe wanted, hired someone to kill her,
Yeah.
that's a no. That's illegal.
You're
you
not
can't do
supposed
that.
to do that.
But I fucking hate Carol,
I
right?
know.
And
Yeah.
she got him in jail.
Wow.
She got a zoo, and I'm like, fuck you, Carol.
Yeah.
She's just making out like a bandit.
Well,
getting away with
you're
everything.
mad about her now. Her ex-husband, Don Lewis.
John, I'm going to stop you real quick.
The murdered one.
It looks like you're looking at notes. And I know that you're such a great celebrity gossip correspondent. You would not need notes.
He just wants to make sure he
Oh, got
gets,
it.
he covers
Yeah.
everything.
I had
Give him a break.
No, I had a highlight topic that I wanted to touch on that's kind of tied to it.
Okay.
So we all know about her former husband, Don Lewis.
The murdered one.
Yeah.
Yes.
The one that everybody thinks
The one that she fed to the
Right.
tigers
Yes.
and sardine
Allegedly.
oil. With sardine oil.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, a sheriff, they just announced that apparently it's been ruled that his will had been forged, right?
Oh, I saw that
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
So one of the clauses in there stated that if he was to die, that all of his whole estate goes to her, right?
Right.
It's like that was a
That's one of the clauses in the forged will.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, which is they got a bunch of different estate attorneys to kind of chime in on that. Like, is this normal? Is this a normal clause you would see in a will? and they're all like, "This is highly unusual. We've never seen this."
Wow.
Before he dies, that clause to be put in there. So now the thing is apparently there's no legal recourse because a judge had already ruled on the estate, which I don't get that, because if you look at contract law, if somebody like held a gun to your head and had you sign something, that document's now void, right? Or if you're underage,
right.
or if it was forged by someone else. So I don't understand if there was fraudulent activity in it. So I don't understand how.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's Florida law. I don't know.
It can be changed. Like, I'm not saying for the law. I'm just saying like it can easily be changed. A judge can just be like,
there's got to be a way that they could.
And that Dawn's kids are just fucking pissed.
Oh my God.
Knowing here's the evidence. They already knew it, I'm sure.
And ex-wife. Right? Like, Carol is a hooker and this little slutty little McSlutterson.
Somebody calls her baby or has, I don't know who.
She like gets picked up by this dude and then becomes a millionaire overnight because of him. And then now he leaves his wife and kids for this bitch down in Florida.
Yeah. Because didn't she, because they've ruled now that she forged the will and she had him give her everything if he died. Yeah. Didn't she not give the kids anything? Right?
Which that would be in the will. Like if he dies, Carol will get most of it, but then his kids need to get some of it. What
father, unless you had a falling out with your kids, what father who still is good with his kids, it's a millionaire, is not going to give them some money. No. So she probably took that out of there to take all of his fortune and not give it to him. Man, she's a terrible person.
She is a bitch.
I saw something similar happen with a friend of mine, good buddy of mine that I've known forever. His dad was worth quite a bit of money. At the end of his life, he was like in a wheelchair and stuff because he had like an accident. Recently got married about a year before that, younger wife, right? And I always knew my buddy was going to inherit quite a bit of money at some point when his dad died. It was just him and his sister in the will. Well, they lived in, his dad lived in Oregon where he got remarried, never got updated his will or something. He died. Oregon law reads like if there's no will, everything goes to the spouse. His estate was worth like $5 million when he died. Mm-hmm. My buddy and his sister didn't get anything other than somehow he ended up with a car, one of his dad's old cars that him and his sister got to share. Like weirdest fucking thing. Meanwhile, it's like, do something like maybe you set up a college fund for out of that $5 million for the grandchildren or something. Yeah, but
that's crazy.
But I remember when my buddy was telling me about this, he's like, after his dad passed, he's like, I found out that, the whole estate is going to go to her. And then he's like, unless something happens to her, in the next 6 months.
And that's when he offered you money to go. And then they're making a Netflix documentary about the whole thing.
But you can kind of see how some of that stuff could play out when there's clauses like that. Like, that's all going to go to this person unless, they die within 6 months, then it doesn't go to their people.
All right, real quick. Odds.
Sorry I got off on that.
That's all right. Odds on... Will Carol Baskin eventually be found guilty of murder?
Yes.
You think so? Yes. Alex is saying yes. John?
I think they're going to find the evidence. They already have evidence, but I don't... I
take that back. I don't know if they will because there's going to be no evidence, right?
Well, apparently with even finding out that the will's been forged, apparently it doesn't do anything for that... part of the defense.
I think that she might not get charged ever, but I think that she's going to live the rest of her life in fear.
Oh, yeah, which she deserves. If she killed her husband, she deserves to be in jail, but she should at least live in fear. Manny, do you think that she'll ever...
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say justice is gonna be served. I think she's gonna go to jail.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I hope so.
Maybe she'll be in the same jail as Joe.
That would be so amazing. That bitch down there in cell block 2.
That bitch down in floor 2.
That bitch down there in the women's correctional facility down the hill from the men's correctional facility. You know who I'm talking about? That bitch Carol Baskin. That
bitch deserves to be in here and I don't.
I I hope that they do. I hope,
Yeah.
If she did it, I hope that they find it.
Well, that was really good.
Part of me says no, that they're not.
Celebrity gossip.
Yeah, that was a good hot celebrity gossip.
Well,
story. Thanks.
I feel like it's the whole Tiger King saga. It's been with us since the beginning of the coronavirus, and
Quarantine.
I'm committed to seeing it through till
I think everybody is.
till we get until all of it plays out, or I don't know, we get a vaccine.
Get some answers.
Right.
I'm not taking the vaccine.
All right. Well, that was the Jubal Show podcast. Remember, Jubal Show comes out every single Wednesday, iTunes and on YouTube. Make sure to rate, review, comment, and subscribe to it. Don't forget about the Fresh to Death podcast, which comes out on Tuesdays. We didn't do one this Tuesday because it was Blackout Tuesday, and we thought we would show respect by pausing the show.
But we really just want to take the day off.
Yeah, we're just like, fuck it, let's just take the day off. So we didn't do a podcast this week on YouTube. But that's every Tuesday only on YouTube, and then the Fresh to Death podcast every single Monday, iTunes, YouTube. Rate, review, comment, and subscribe to it. Follow everybody on social media. I'm a Jubal Fresh on everything. Alex is at That Dreas on everything. Manny Martin is at Manny Martin Jr. and John Slaton is at John L. Slaton. And we will see you next week. Be safe, and hopefully we'll have something a little more uplifting to talk about next week.
See ya.
All right. Bye.
Bye.